Hey, I'm Tim Bass. I'm not real, but you might be. I spent a lot of years as a character across several game systems and with a variety of player parents and their character offspring around me. One thing that always bugs me is when a player refuses to interact in a scene as if it's dealing with real people. I mean, how hard is it to turn to another player and say something like, Scorpion ranted at me before he got away, and he said that you were down at the docks shaking down his minions for information, and he wants to know why you're putting him in the hospital when they're cooperating. Instead, you tend to get player turns to other player and says something stupid like, you heard what the GM said, I tell you that. Come on, humans. It's not that hard to characterize with a little flair. If you can't remember what was just told to you, you might be in the wrong hobby. Or if you can't visualize the scene enough to characterize it, maybe you should get off your stupid phone. It gets even worse when dealing with non-player characters and you don't talk to them like they're even people. How many times have you ever spoken to a person in shorthand in a conversation because you told someone something else in the moment before and you just end up wanting to repeat it? I understand that sometimes it's appropriate for brevity, but like a game of telephone, a lot of information gets garbled when passed between people. A lot of good opportunities are lost when players fail to use opportunities to engage with characters that differ perspectives. Often I think the players start to fear talking with NPCs because the GM can sometimes appear to be hostile to their plans, when it's not the GM's job really to be hostile, but to be an honest merchant of information. You can sometimes make players feel like they're not being treated fairly. The problem with this is that if the GM is doing his job correctly, he is a neutral party and is also the only person with full perspective and worldview. It's imperative to correct operation of the game that the maximum communication level is maintained. When you get into these situations, I think it's imperative that you take the lead and never accept shorthand dialogue with other players when dealing with complicated concepts. If you've got something going on and you're like, hey, anybody want a cup of coffee before we get into the meeting? Yeah, sure. Go ahead and shorthand that. It works. But you probably shorthand other things that you shouldn't be shorthanding just for brevity or because everyone's in the same room technically, even though your characters aren't. So shorthanding it makes sense from a real-world perspective, but never give up on the opportunity to engage in dialogue. After all, what else are you really here for? The 90% of the game that's sitting around in the real world with a bunch of fat neckbeards eating bad food and drinking bad drinks? I guess if that's what you're really there for, but you should probably find a different hobby. So next time you're tempted to get sloppy and make your character as boring as you are in real life, just tell it, fuck no, Snake. Then you eat that motherfucker with some mayonnaise. I've been Tim Bass, and I'm a part-time superhero.